It's Sunday, October 19th, 2008. We're at the Ina Levine Jewish Community Campus, and we're talking to Miryam Salter, who has been a mainstay in this Jewish community as an educator for many years. But we're going to ask Miryam to take us back a ways and ask her about her life before she came to Phoenix.
I grew up in Israel. I came from Israel directly to Phoenix, and you can imagine what kind of a culture shock that was.
What year was that, Miryam?
It was either August or September of '59. A cousin of my mother's ended up in Phoenix after the war and reconnected with my parents and insisted that I come and visit. Prior to that, prior to my coming here, I was in the Israeli Air Force for 5 years and then worked for the Prime Minister's office for 2 years.
In what capacity?
In HR for the 10th anniversary committee celebration, and took a leave of absence for 6 months and came to America. And I had every intention of returning. I had a job waiting for me at the atomic smasher in Rehovot. In the course of my coming from Israel, the town I grew up in is Ramat Gan, and there weren't too many people going to America, not USA, America, in 1959. And they asked me to bring a gift to a woman living here in Phoenix who studied in Israel for a while, Esther Hecht, who was then the president of Hadassah. And I delivered the gift. They lived in Arcadia in Scottsdale, around Indian School and maybe 50th Street. And she insisted that I talk to the Hadassah group. And I said, look, I'm here for a very short period of time. I want to go back. I am not a public speaker. They laid on the Jewish guilt on me, and I ended up speaking to the Hadassah women. And when they found out I was single, that all I had was a boyfriend in Israel, they tried to shidduch me with every Jewish guy that could walk and talk at the same time.
And I'm going to ask you to translate that wonderful term shidduch for the few people watching this.
Matchmaking,
okay.
The matchmaking. And I did date a whole bunch of guys, and finally I said, enough. And then met my ex-husband and fell in love and got married and never went back.
So the community that you found when you settled in here, could you tell us a little bit about your experiences?
It was, coming from a fairly small town in Israel in 1959, Israel was not a first world country. It was maybe third, maybe 2.5. I mean, a lot of things were not available. And here I'm thrown into the supermarket, and there is 15 kinds of tomato sauce, and I don't know how many kinds of bread. And I remember I had to go get some cereal, and cereal in Israel all had baby foods on them. It wasn't a big item. People didn't eat a lot of cereal in Israel. So I bought pablum. It had baby face on it, and it was, that was it. I remember going to a rancho on the corner of Camelback and Central. It was within walking distance from our apartment. I did not drive. I was walking, and I was waiting for public transportation. It was non-existent in Phoenix. And there was a mountain of canned food, tuna, and I wasn't stupid. I knew tuna was expensive, and 10 for $1 had to be a good deal. So I bought tuna, thinking it was tuna fish, and it was cat food. I mean, those were the kind of adjustments. A friend of mine, Muriel Kolner, took me, she really was attuned to it. She took me to the supermarket and showed me what is to be used for what. For all I knew, I could have used Comet as a spice for soup. It was totally new. I met Zach Marin at a dinner party, and we started talking, and he said to me, I'm looking for Hebrew school teachers.
And his position at that time
He was the principal of Bethel. There were 3 synagogues in Phoenix. There was Beth Hebrew down on Portland and 3rd. There was Bethel.
And Beth Hebrew was the Orthodox.
Orthodox, with Rabbi, I think, Greenberg. I'm not sure, but I think Greenberg was his name. There was Zach Marin was at Bethel with Klein before Tuttenauer came. And Beth Israel had Rabbi Plotkin at 10th and Osborne. I don't think there was anything in Scottsdale. In order to get to Scottsdale, you had to take Camelback because there wasn't any other street that would go through.
Now, many of us who've been here a long time think of you as Mrs. Salter, the Hebrew school teacher. How did that come to be?
I met Zach Marin at Muriel Kolner's house And we were sitting outside smoking because she wouldn't allow smoking in her house. And we're talking. And he said, come to my office, I want to interview you. I said, Zach, I am not a teacher. My major was liberal arts and minoring in languages. I was hoping to go into the translation school in Switzerland, and things just didn't work out. He says, come and talk to me. And I did, and he hired me, and I was teaching 7th and 8th grade ever since. And we started teaching at the old building at Bethel, on 3rd and McDowell, and the classrooms were, I can't tell you how small they were, and the desks were old desks, and if there were more than 15 kids in the class, to get to the kid at the end, you literally had to climb over the desks. But learning took place, and the surrounding did not make any difference. It was the atmosphere, and it was a really wonderful period.
The Jewish community that you found when you first came here, and the Jewish community now, could you just tell us your feelings about the experience that you literally have experienced by living here?
The Jewish community that I was exposed to when I first came were, first of all, to me it seemed like a very small community. I think the women that came to hear me at that Hadassah meeting at Luba Katz's house in Arcadia, there were 100 women there, and it probably represented the whole Jewish community at the time. It was, we didn't have a voice. I remember the newspaper was very anti-Semitic, very anti the Republic.
It was the Republican Gazette at that time.
Yes. But the Jewish community is a Jewish community in terms, and there weren't any Israelis. I mean, I was dying to speak Hebrew, and there wasn't anybody to speak Hebrew to, at least not for the first year that I was here. It seemed that the Jewish community really did not have a real sense of what life in Israel was like, because they would ask me questions like, when did you start using lipstick, and do you have electricity, have you heard about Gregory Peck? You know, there was this kind, and it used to annoy me because I said, you give all this money and you don't know what's happening. They were aghast that they were Jewish prostitutes. I said, it's a country like any other country. You know, it's a nation like any other nation. The Jewish community of today has no relationship to what was in 59 or 60 or even the early 60s. This is a viable, real Jewish community with a voice and influence, and people listen to us, and it's just wonderful.
And incidentally, a very large Israeli community.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of how many Israelis are here?
I am told those that are willing to be acknowledged as Israelis, there probably are in excess of 3,000.
That is a substantial number.
Yeah.
Miryam, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for asking me.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.